Welcome to episode 12 of Mental Mastery, where I interview the world's greatest minds on what it takes to live an epic life. I'm your host Max Weigand, and today I'm joined by master coach Aileen Gibb, who specializes in helping people live bolder lives and create deeper conversations. We're going to talk about creating a compelling vision, living a bold life, and building meaningful relationships. So Aileen, welcome to the show.
Hello, Max. Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Really so excited for this. So Aileen, you help people live bolder lives. So why do you think it is so hard for people to chase those big dreams that they may have and go for what they really want in life?
First of all, I don't think it's that hard for everybody. I think there are some people who are already going after it and getting and creating what they want. I think for others, there's a few reasons. You know, our schools don't prepare people to do that. Some people don't even think about the possibility that there's more to be achieved or to go after or to be created in their life, and they're very content. They're trained to program to fit in, right? Fit in with what's normal or what's average. And many people end up being pretty mediocre in that sense, rather than waking up every day thinking, wow, I could be a star. There's more I could do. What do I really want to create? And so finding that voice in themselves, I think, is quite difficult sometimes.
So if someone decides now, I want to live a bolder life, I want to live a life outside of kind of this average life they've been living, what are some steps that they can take to kind of take themselves to the next level?
That's such a great question, Max. Obviously, it's unique to each person's context, but I think they could start asking themselves some questions, right? So asking yourself the question, what do I really want to create in my life? What's the life I really want to live? And listening for the answer there, and not listening to all the people who might say, you can't do it, don't go after it, play safe, right? And yet the actual thing that moves them towards those big dreams is the next step, finding that one next step that moves you forward. And sometimes it's a little bit risky, but it's exciting as well. So what excites you? What do you really want to create? And then what's the action step that you can take as the first point to move towards it?
I love this point that you're making here about kind of like oftentimes you have all these people around you that are telling you it's too hard, it's too scary, whatever. And oftentimes those can be even family members and friends, right? They may be having the best of intentions, right? But oftentimes they're so scared themselves that they can't see that you may be able to create a more powerful vision for yourself. So what do you suggest to people that are really stuck in this fear of I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, whatever? How do you get out of that and really embrace this ability to really dream bigger?
Well, one of my coaches has this great concept that we create experiments. You know, life is an experiment at the end of the day. So, and it's easy to say, well, don't listen to those naysayers. But really everything is an experiment. So rather than saying, oh, I have to achieve this big dream and everybody watching to see if you're going to fail or succeed, much as they might be coming from a place of love that they want you to be safe, I think just telling people, hey, I'm just trying this. I'm experimenting with this. I'm going to see where this takes me. And creating that sense of curiosity rather than that sense of bravado or creating fear in your parents or your friends that you're doing something so out there they're going to worry about you. Just say, I'm experimenting. I'm going to try this. I'll see how it feels.
I love this. So just kind of taking those baby steps and maybe not taking it too seriously to the point where you're scared of failure, right? Because that's what that's what stops most people is kind of being afraid of failing at this big goal. So instead, if we can start small and just kind of inch forward, that's oftentimes very helpful. So I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, one step at a time moves you in the right direction.
Oh, for sure. So Aileen, tell me, you are teaching people how to live this grand vision of themselves. What did your path to really this journey in personal development look like? Like, how do you get into this field?
Oh my goodness. Well, it's I don't know where to start on that one, Max. I can go right back to the time I was 13 when I had this idea that I wanted to go to university and study business languages, business studies, and I wanted to do secretarial. So that shows you how old I am. And my careers advisor, who's supposed to be the expert, told me there was no way I could do that. He said, there is no such course, Aileen. And I think often of that moment and how my response to it was, you can't tell me I can't do that. I will go and make that happen for myself.
Wow.
And so I went and did all the research, and I went and asked all the questions on where I could find that course. And really my path unfolded from there. One thing led to another. People kept suggesting different programs for me to study. I went on to study human resources, and I went into business in the oil and gas industry here in the northeast of Scotland. And then one of my managers said, what do you really want to do in this company, Aileen? So my path to development was always inspired or triggered by somebody either challenging me or asking me a question on what I did want to do. And that was like the temptation. It was like, well, if you're saying I can't do something, I'm going to show you that I will do it. And just continually exploring, reading, meeting interesting people, asking questions, and basically never accepting that there wasn't another way to do something.
Well, I love that, especially that you took initiative at such a young age and really decided, like, if you don't want to help me get into this, then I'm going to do it myself. I love that.
Yeah. That sense of being self-sufficient, back to your earlier question. I think in my career, I've seen how people have relied on the education system or the company they're working in to take care of their learning and their development. People have expected that companies pay for their learning and development. And I see that as one of the next big shifts that's emerging, that as we move forward, people need to be prepared to take that responsibility for their own growth.
Oh, for sure. Because I mean, if you place your life's achievements, your success, your fulfillment on other people, you're always going to be let down, right? So ultimately,
Absolutely.
everyone has to take their responsibility for themselves to decide, hey, those are the books I'm going to read, those are the podcasts I'm going to listen to, this is how much I'm going to work out, all of that stuff, right? We can't put that responsibility on someone else.
And there's so much more of that available and accessible to people now. The way of the world is changing, the way people learn is changing. We have all these fantastic ways to get this information and practice it. So it's a very different world there.
Oh, for sure. So, Aileen, when we're trying to live a bolder life, having a compelling vision is absolutely critical, right? So what are some questions that people can ask themselves to create a more powerful vision for themselves?
I'm so glad you've asked me this, because it made me think of my one favorite question on which I built my company and my team. And we had no business plan. We didn't do anything conventionally. We built our success on one question that we asked ourselves. And it was, what do I want to do, be, feel, create, experience in life?
Wow.
And we had each of our team members basically create their responses to that question. And that became our vision board. And when we went back to look at it after a few months, we would tick things off and say, hey, I got that. That happened for me. And it really moved forward. So I love that question, that it just has people really declare to the world, what do they want? And from there, their vision emerges.
Wow, that's so amazing that you set out to create this business based on those values of like, how do I want to live and what do I want to do? So how do you make sure then that all of those align? Because I assume like if you were several people, there were a lot of different opinions and ideas. So how did you make sure that all of those kind of converge and go together to become one grand idea?
I wasn't it wasn't something I had to manage. It wasn't something I had to make happen. All I had to do was create the space for people to express what they wanted to create in the world. And then our company, which was an experiment in itself, was the space for people to bring that to fruition, right? So I guess I did it the other way around. I didn't have to align people to a singular vision. Mm-hmm. Rather, our organization, our business was the vessel within which everybody's visions could be achieved. And everybody was on the same path. We were all interested in the same things. We were all learning the same things together. So there was a lot of similarities in who we were and how we moved it forward. And yet there was space for each person to follow their individual dreams as well.
Wow, that is so amazing. Such a great story. So do you have any other questions that you can share with people if they want to create a more powerful vision? Not just maybe for their business, but also like their personal lives, and maybe they're stuck in a job, but they really want to just kind of get out of that and live a different life?
You know, I think the question is actually very simple, Max. I think the question that people don't ask enough, or don't want to ask themselves sometimes is, what do I really want? And people don't realize they've been told their whole life what they should want or how they should be. And so that in itself can be a breakthrough, asking yourself, what do I really want? And realizing that there's the opportunity for you to pursue it.
Oh, for sure. And I think oftentimes just looking at, like, having role models in your life, looking at people that have done it before, that have, like, accomplished whatever it is you're trying to do, looking at them and realizing that all your excuses are essentially garbage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because nowadays,
Absolutely.
like, basically anything, like, you can think of has been done before by someone else.
Yep.
And so finding, like, the role model and kind of, like, looking at their steps and simply repeating this process over again, I think is so powerful. And just realizing that you have the ability to do that.
Yes, absolutely. You know, I love to share the story of my niece who is just turned 30, and she went to university and didn't want to follow a conventional career path. So she went traveling. She'd been on 2 world trips, just went traveling, experiencing lots of different cultures and countries. And now she has the perfect job. She created the opportunity to work with an international organization that flies her all around the world, that she deals with customers in all the continents, and she gets to follow her own passion of traveling at the same time.
Wow.
And I just think that's so inspiring, that we can really create a world that works for us individually.
For sure. Love that.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, one thing that research suggests is highly important for our happiness is relationships with other people. And you actually help people build better connections, more meaningful, deeper connections with other people. So how can we do that? Like, what are some steps that we can take to really go away from this kind of superficial talk and really build those meaningful and deep connections with other people? Yeah,
this is such an interesting area in these days of technology and all our iPhones and everything else, isn't it? That you know, the capacity for the real conversations may be diminishing. And I've read some research that says, you know, empathy in those relationships is so important. So it really is about the person to person connection. It's remembering that there's a person at the end of the technology. You know, here you and I are talking across the airwaves at the moment. And yet, at least we can see each other as real people. So it's remembering that that's what we are at the end of the day. And I think conversation is one of the best ways of bringing us back to that human-to-human connection. So great conversations come from slowing ourselves down, noticing where we have judgments, letting go of our assumptions, and really being prepared to ask genuinely curious questions of each other, and then totally to listen, not to be trying to convince other people that we're right or that we have all the answers, but really being genuinely interested in the other person's view of the world and having them listen to our view of the world and learn from each other in those conversations. That leads to great relationships and understanding.
Oh, I love that. And so you mentioned slowing down. What do you mean by that?
Oh my goodness, slowing down is so important. You know, we work at such a speed these days that we see it in the media all the time. We see politicians and leaders carelessly using language and realizing afterwards that it's, you know, it was offensive or it tripped them up or it caused problems for people. And that's because they're moving too fast. They're thinking too fast. They're not being self-aware and conscious enough to consider what the impact of their words are or might be on other people, or even whether those words are what they really intended to say. So just slowing down enough and listening to ourselves, first of all, and asking those inner questions. What's my intention here? Am I really conveying what I mean? Have I thought through the implications and the unintended consequences of what I'm about to say? So we see that in the public arena, and obviously it's equally as important in our personal lives.
Oh, for sure, for sure. So what are some other practical steps that we can take like right away and use them in our conversations?
Noticing, first of all, what your intention is as you go into a conversation. You know, there's that classic piece that, you know, people go into conversations already fighting, already wanting to convince or persuade the other person that their point of view is the right point of view. So if we can remember that everybody's point of view contributes to a bigger picture, then shifting from that stance of trying to be right to being genuinely curious, and that leads you to asking the questions, and asking questions which genuinely open up new thinking. You know, it's very simple. I spend my whole life saying, you know, ask open questions versus closed questions. And everybody says, yes, Aileen, I know what an open question is. I know what a closed question is. And the truth is, very often people don't hear whether they're asking truly open questions or whether they're asking a question which they already know the answer to. So an open question, genuinely curious, genuinely opening up the possibilities, is one that you don't yet know the answer to. And that leads to very interesting conversation and relationships.
Oh, I love that. And just to add to like the point you made before about kind of preparing in advance, actually one of the most powerful habits I've really worked on over the last few months is deciding kind of the mental state that I want to be in going into a conversation, right? So I'm going to say like, hey, I want to be loving or kind or funny or whatever it is, right? And deciding that in advance, you're going to be able to act much differently than if you were just going in maybe in a bad mood, maybe you're just frustrated, angry, tired, whatever it is. But deciding in advance, like, I want to make this a great, powerful conversation is so powerful. Yes.
And also, I think there's something in there as well, Max, about shifting the focus from self onto the other person.
For sure.
I read a great quote again just before I came on air, which said that the true definition of empathy isn't that phrase that we say so glibly, oh, I know how you feel. True empathy is when I enter a conversation with the understanding and the awareness that there's no way I can know how another person feels, right?
Love that.
So there you have that distinction between, you know, language that we use very loosely without thinking, what does it really mean? And coming to a state of a deeper awareness that says, what else is there in this conversation that I don't yet know?
Wow, I love that. I think very powerful idea of like just being willing to learn from other people, to accept their opinions, for sure. So, Aileen, you've been a coach for many, many years now. You have so much incredible experience. What are some characteristics that you think are common among like the most effective coaches? Like, how can you really help people change their lives for the better?
Yes. So be careful with the many years there, Max. Don't make me sound too old.
Oh, no. No, you just have a lot of experience.
I do. I joke with you. Yes, since I started in this field, the world of coaching has expanded hugely. And that word doesn't even encompass all the variations that there is in that field now. So people can mean different things by the word coaching or being a coach. And I don't think it's such a thing as one thing called coaching. I think coaching is how we approach people. So the characteristics that I look for in great coaches are someone who isn't trying to fix another person because they think they're broken and they have all the answers for them. I think the characteristics of a great coach are someone who understands and really cares that people are already whole, that they are already capable of whatever they want to create and achieve in their life. And the intention of the coach is to support them along that path. And they support them by respecting their potential and by listening deeply to what the person might not be hearing in themselves. And so deep, deep listening is one of the greatest professions in the world for developing your listening skills. And that's a lifelong journey, no matter how many years you've been at it. And mastery with questions, really understanding how questions unlock people's minds and their hearts and their spirit to see new possibilities.
Love that. So can you share some questions with us that, like you mentioned, can really help people unlock their true potential?
Wow. Well, there are lots of questions. I always find it a little bit difficult to answer a question in this way because the questions that are most useful for each person are usually very contextual to the conversation that they're having with themselves.
That makes sense, yeah.
However, I can say that the simplest and shortest questions are quite often the most powerful. So questions like, what do you really want? What do you think about that? How else could you look at this situation? What else might be possible for you? What's really stopping you? What's holding you back? What is getting in your way? And what's your next step? I have a unscientifically proven theory that the most useful questions are only 5 to 7 words long.
Love that. Yeah, just kind of short and spicy, right? Like being effective. That's what it's really about.
Yeah, and it's also about the coach really serving the client, okay? Because those short questions encourage the client to really go into their own thinking and their own awareness and find what they're capable of. And it's like those short, powerful questions are just little nudges to keep them exploring a little bit further until they come to those new insights that are going to equip them to move forward.
Love that. So, Aileen, in the last 5 years, what new belief, behavior, habit has improved your life the most?
One that's really, I think, a common one that many people encounter in their life is that actually I learned I don't have to please everybody all of the time. We're brought up to be good little boys and girls and to, do what everybody wants us to do and get the pat on the head. And that takes us into this pleasing way of living, which can get in the way of really exploring what we're capable of. So, yeah, I don't have to please people all the time, and I can serve myself first, can put myself first and do what I want.
Love that. Do you have a favorite mantra or quote that you live by?
One that I've used for many, many years. I used it in our business. and I use it for my own life. And it's very simple. It is, there's always another way. So whenever something becomes a challenge, or whenever something doesn't work out, or when it's not clear what the way forward is, then sitting with that, there's always another way, and asking where it might be, where is that other way, usually unlocks a new way forward.
Love that. So opening yourself up to this possibility there's other opportunities, other results. Okay, love that.
Yeah. And also, I think it also reassures me that there is no failure that's so bad that we can't find another way around it, you know? So it encourages me to think, hold on, no matter how bad that felt, there must be another way here, and see if I can find it.
Love that. So Aileen, what has been one of the biggest challenges in your life, and how did you overcome it?
Well, I have a challenge that was probably very common to many of your listeners, Max, in that a close family member has gone through cancer, which is all too common a story these days. And it's a great example, though. Not only did that person have great resilience in himself to come through it, the thing that we learned as we went through that was that it doesn't even matter what the experts try to tell you, that it's still up to you to decide what your path is. So we used to go and listen to the experts, and they would give us a so-called prognosis, and we'd come out of those appointments, which were sometimes very black and white and quite hard to hear. But we would come out of them and say, do we believe that? And we'd go, no, we don't believe that. Let's get on with things. And it turns out all those prognoses were wrong. And so we lived in that moment and also created our own vision of what was possible, even through that extreme challenge.
Wow. So first of all, I'm really glad your family member's fine. And
Yeah,
secondly,
totally.
that's such a great idea of just not accepting the bad news, right? And deciding I'm going to create this life for myself no matter what other people say.
Yeah.
That's so
And
interesting.
we didn't know how long that would be, but it was basically today is today. What do we believe today? Nobody can tell us how to live our life today.
Do you think that's part of the reason why it got better?
I believe it is actually, Max. You know, I remember the oncologist who was very black and white and very factual, and obviously thought his job was to tell us the bad news because that was his responsibility. And I often said that anybody who was less self-assured or less confident in themselves would believe everything, all the bad news. And I'm pretty sure that would have made them more ill.
For sure, yeah.
So, yeah, I totally do believe that, you know, that mind-body connection played out very strongly in that scenario.
Well, I love that, how you kind of improved that through just believing that it would be better. Love that. So, Aileen, on the show, we love to celebrate failures. So do you have a favorite failure in your life that later forced you to become better, become stronger, and create a bigger vision of your life?
I have a favorite one, a little story relating to an event that I once led. I had shown up with my colleagues to run a leadership program for some senior executives.
Wow.
And these executives showed up on the day and were very disinterested. They weren't engaging. And, you know, as the day went on, it got heavier and more depressing. And I got more worried. I was thinking, oh my gosh, this isn't working. These people are not happy. They're not paying attention. They're not engaging with us. And at the end of the day, I went into my worry head for a little while and conferred with my colleagues. And I said, why is this not working? What's going on? What am I doing wrong? And I wasn't doing anything wrong, really, but it really felt like I was failing on the day. And next morning, it taught me to speak a truth. And basically, I named it. And I said, why is this not working? Do you gentlemen, was all gentlemen at the time, do you want to be here? Because if you don't want to be here, I don't need to be here. I came with the best intention to serve you. I came at your request to run this leadership event. If this isn't what you want to do this week, let's just all go home. And so they came back and said, no, we'll stay, Aileen, and this is what we'll do. And 2 weeks later, one of the senior executives called me to say, Aileen, that was the best example of truth-telling I've ever seen. So it taught me totally to not be afraid to speak up when something was actually evident in the room, and to call people on their behaviors or to find out what was really the issue there. So it was a lot of fun after that, but it was a tricky moment.
Oh, I bet, but I love how you kind of addressed that elephant in the room and then were able to kind of create better conversations after that, right? Because only when you address a problem or talk about it can you actually fix something.
Absolutely. And I do have a theory, Max, that, many of our conversations are so incomplete for that reason, that we don't give voice to the unspoken that everybody might be thinking or might be afraid to name or address. So it's very powerful when you find you can do that.
Oh, for sure. So, Aileen, what is one of the best or most worthwhile investments that you've made throughout your life? Could be anything in the form of time, money, energy.
I was thinking about this one, and the first thing that popped into my head, Max, was my new pair of skis. And I thought, well, Max is obviously looking for a deeper answer than that.
Well, that's a good one too.
Yeah, but it made me think about the fact that sometimes our next level of performance does require new tools or technology, that we can use that as well as our own capacity. So obviously the new skis only work as well as I do. So we work together. But it did make me realize that, we can't dismiss the value of having new pieces of equipment and tools and technology that help us on our path as well.
Oh, for sure. Especially with nowadays, just so much new technologies coming up. Like, it's more and more important to really make sure that we use them in a wise way.
Absolutely.
Love that.
Yeah.
So, Aileen, before I ask my final question, where can listeners connect with you online?
Well, they can find my website at aileengibb.com. I am on Facebook and I'm on Twitter under Inspired Future, which is the name of my company. And they can email me at aileengibb@icloud.com.
Awesome.
Oh, you can also find me on Amazon.com. I have a couple of books on Amazon, and so they can find me there as well.
Awesome. I put up the links on my website. So my final question,
Thank you.
What does mental mastery mean to you?
I love that question, and I'm very interested in following your work on this, Max. And again, I came up with a very simple answer for it. I think it's about not believing my own stories.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, it's about not believing the stories I make up that stop me or get in the way or distract me, So we all have stories going on in our heads all the time. And very often that's all they are, stories. And one of my clients laughs at me because when she's telling me one of her stories, she might say something like, well, it's because my father worked really hard and I have to work really hard. And, I did this. And I'll say, or not. And she loves that I just ask those two words. So we could tell ourselves a story and we can believe it or not.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. And thank you to everyone who tuned in to today's episode of Mental Mastery. Tune in daily for new episodes on how you can achieve mental mastery and live a happy and successful life. And if you would like a little extra push, head over to my website maxweigand.com for a free ebook on mastering self-discipline and willpower. There, you can also sign up for my one-on-one habit coaching program where I help you master your habits and achieve your goals. Also, if you like this interview, feel free to rate and review the show. Until next time,